Hey friends, welcome to the stream. This is Connor in Pittsburgh, and I am going to be drawing some cool stuff today. I've been reading about mining, I've been watching videos about mining, especially there's a YouTube channel called Exploring Abandoned Mines, which is some excellent stuff. This one guy gets people to pay him to go into mines that no one's been in 50 or 60 years and just map out what's there and what's going on. This was some of the drawing I did yesterday that was related to these mines and to that video. One of the things I was interested in is the idea of a drainage adit. So here you would have geology that had the material of interest kind of here in a mountain. So the top of the mountain's up here, maybe you access it at the top of some valley or ridgeline here, and this is the main kind of shaft of the mine. And the material is here, but if there's water coming down off this mountain, that water is going to get into this mine. If there's a lake up over here, if this is actually a plateau, water will get into the mine. And if this drainage adit hasn't been tunneled from some low valley miles away in to the mountainside, then eventually this thing's going to fill up with water, or you're going to have to invest in a pumping mechanism to pump all the water out, which is its own set of problems. And so the kind of 1890s solution was just to take on the vast civic project of drilling a giant drainage adit, A-D-I-T, A-D-I-T. Once you have a drainage adit, if you've made it wide enough that you can have, oh, there we go, collapse there. If you make it wide enough that you can have mine carts going through it, then what you can actually do is basically set up a chute from wherever you're mining downwards, so that whatever ore you're loosening from the mountain and then putting down, kind of crumbling, and then putting into mine carts and bringing out, you can bring that stuff down by gravity, basically by throwing it down a hole, and the hole has like a metal bin at the bottom with a little gate, and you bring mine carts up and get the ore dumped into the carts, and then pull the carts out of the mine and deal with them outside. Let's get started kind of drawing. The other thing that I was thinking about the last time I streamed was this idea of bipedal reptilian predator and how that might work. And this was the idea we were going with the first drawing here is, what if it only had arms and no legs? And the idea here was a very short lizard that had big, wide, webbed feet, so that it could actually use its other hand as like a long, probing claw. Kind of like there's like a weird sort of monkey-looking creature that's not a monkey, I think in Madagascar, that has like an extra long index finger, and it sticks it into empty logs and then pokes around and grabs a grub and pulls the grub back out. So it's almost this like, it's not a prehensile finger, because that doesn't make any sense, but it's extra long and creepy, and it's there for kind of horror movie food grabbing purposes. If the Rancor in Star Wars had a long probing finger like that, or like this one, then there we go. So the other one that was I was kind of thinking about was a creature that only had back legs. So maybe let's draw that predatory lizard that only has back legs here. And I was doing it in pencil there, but I'm going to go ahead and do it in pen here. The art down here, which we're going to get to in a little bit, is an illustration of a stope, which is the diagonal surface that is the ore that's interesting, being kind of blasted at the top, and then the ore falls down at the bottom, and then there's a draw point where you pull the ore out laterally on one of these crosscuts, and then that gets you into the kind of transport area. I don't know why I'm pointing at my screen rather than pointing at your version of my screen, right? This is the transport area down at the bottom. So if that was also the lowest point in the mine, that would be an adit, a transport adit. And there are some really big mining operations where the real key to their success is that they have installed a transport adit that is below all of the geology they're interested in and well below all of the geology they're interested in. And so they have a permanent piece of infrastructure to which they can direct all the ore they're ever going to mine out of that mine, which is cool. Right, so we're thinking about a creature that has back legs and no front legs. So I'm going to start by kind of loosely outlining, I guess, the idea of a back leg. Well, I imagine that this kind of reptile thing is going to be just pushing itself along, and it'll have like a big plate on its front, and then it will use these back legs to kind of propulse itself. And so those legs are going to be just absolutely vast in terms of their muscles, because there's just, it's gonna need to push so much with these back feet, and so I'm trying to give it something like lizard claws, but with the idea of mole claws. One of the things I was reading about, which I guess we can jump to now, is the Bipes Bipedus. This is a sparkly gif of one, because I thought that was very funny, and it's also in a great position to kind of draw off of it. So this is the Mexican mole lizard, named Mexican because there are 3 species of it, and then a lizard because it's a lizard, though it only has front legs, it does not have back legs, and then mole because it resembles a mole in its face and in its little mole hands. So that's what we're gonna base this. This is going to be slightly different because obviously these are legs and not arms. So these will look different than the front arms of a creature would. So we got this. I'm going to give this something that not all lizards and reptiles have, but which I'm going to kind of just decide that this one does, which is this kind of, it's not a keel. Dinosaurs have them, but like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park have them, but it's kind of like a pubic keel, I guess. I don't think that's the scientific term. So the music that's going on right now is all music from 1923. And it's music from 1923 because 1923, uh, all copyright claims to things that were created in 1923 uh, are done in American copyright law. They have completed their copyright cycle and they have entered into the public domain. And because of this, all of these songs are just free to listen to, free to use. They're all kind of like white people making recordings of jazz music, early jazz music. This is the kind of shield that I'm implementing here. And uh, it's not so much a shield, right, as just a different kind of material quality, a different kind of scale quality to its belly. So this is kind of what if a Mexican mole lizard had back legs instead of front legs. And here I'm going to try to display what... Well, it's funny, these are such heavy claws for digging, right? And they're muscled the way that you would muscle claws for digging, but I guess in this case they're actually there for pushing. There must be a way for this creature to kind of use them face front and use them, but that might leave it extremely susceptible to predation. But I'll have to think about how it tries to accomplish that. This particular subspecies of, or not subgenre, maybe subgenre, subfamily of lizards, the Mexican mole lizard is part of, are called kind of worm-like lizards because they have, as you can see from the drawing, or from the sparkly picture, they have just a lot of kind of folds or ridges in their construction that is similar to how worms do it. So something I'm trying to adopt in the drawing of this is this idea from watercolor that if you're doing watercolor, you should only ever have kind of 5 layers, 5 layers of value stacked on top of each other. And so in order to provide kind of dimensionality here, I'm trying to make sure that I do go over a lot of the piece and add the appropriate shadows and extra layers of shading to convey the detail of the thing. But right, so one thing that this mole lizard does have, which this thing does not, is this kind of separation layer here, which I guess will be interrupted by the leg. The leg comes in here and the other leg is here, which puts the pelvis kind of down like this. So this actually, thinking about it, right? What this pelvic hump actually is that rather than these legs, well, the pelvis is kind of, if you imagine the spine here, if we were to rotate this upwards, and this was a human, he'd be looking, or she'd be looking up, and this would be the spine with the rib cage, and kind of no arms, and then you get down to the pelvis, and in order to walk like this, essentially, this person would be in a complete crouch with their legs pulled all the way into their chest, which has been counterbalanced by this enormous long tail. And then in addition to pulling their legs all the way into their chest, they're also pulling their ankles back. And so in order to kind of be in that position, these hips need quite a lot of muscles to adjust, right? Because the body plan looking this way was not quite going to support that the same way. This is maybe some bad and speculative evolution, but this is like a bad and speculative creature, so let me have my fun thinking of the potential hypothetical forces that affected this thing's development. Because that sure is fun to think about. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool. I feel like this. I feel like now its head is really uninteresting. If you came across this in a tunnel, I think you'd be afraid of the body of it. Oh, well, its head is also not visible to you guys. You'd be afraid of the body of it, but not necessarily. Oh, you'd be afraid of these claws, right? But you wouldn't necessarily be afraid of the head. This thing, I feel like, well, the idea here. Where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is that I think this creature, or something like that creature more exactly, though I'm starting to like this as the idea for how it is, because it's like a wingless wyvern. I think this creature is actually going to be the creature that it's going to sort of slither walk its way down the center of this adit, and it will actually carry these mine carts in and out, because at the time of the sort of mining technology that I'm thinking about, what people used was pit ponies. A mining horse. They weren't necessarily ponies, they were typically small, smaller than your average horse. They were usually 48 inches, I think. And wow, tons of them died. They were used as replacement labor for basically women and children. And yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of these horses were beloved, but I think that they were also, worked to death underground. And they were definitely Uh, no more than 12 hands, 48 inches. That's not a very tall horse, but they're working in not very tall spaces, right? This is a horse that is could not be taller, right? If it was a taller horse, it would not do. It would not survive. Uh, and it's pulling kind of a minecart that's got wheels down here. The minecart's on a track. Uh, there's so much material that they move, right? That the tracks are kind of dusty with all of the stuff that's falling off of the carts because, uh, I mean, all of this ore is potentially valuable. All of the ore that they've knocked out is potentially valuable, and except for the stuff that is like the ore that's just like garbage between the good stuff. But they need to bring that out with in order to actually get to things. Everything that's in a mine needs to come out of the ground, and so you need to have a plan to lift that stuff, transport that stuff horizontally and vertically as far as it needs to go to get it out of the mine. Okay, so we got this thing. That's pretty cool. I guess how I imagine it moving is if the ground is here, it has this kind of shielding part below its neck. So it is kind of resting on this shield of scales and then taking big steps, using its claws to kind of dig in. And just scooching its way forward. Which makes sense when, you're in a mine. So if it's scooching forward like this, then the base of its locomotion is in its hips. And I'm kind of trying to mimic that motion. The base of its locomotion is in its hips. And so it's moving like a big T-Rex or something. The fact that it doesn't have shoulders is kind of interesting. I guess there is going to be a point where it widens out just a little bit, and so if it's going to be hooked up to some mine carts, it could do that. I want them to be hooked kind of side to side, and so it is going to have a yoke the way that this pony has a yoke, but it's going to have a style of yoke which I think you will see and understand soon enough. Right now this is just sketching. Well, this one's pretty real. but here I'm just trying to convey in diagrammatic form what this yoke does, which is that it pulls minecarts along tracks. And it pulls a pair of them. And I guess you could actually, you could craft yokes of multiple sizes if you wanted, or you could hook the mine cars together and create kind of longer trains of mine cars. So maybe there's actually right leg. More cars. More cars on this side. More cars on this side too. And then in the center, you have a kind of carefully constructed kind of stone or cement trough. And that's the surface that these squamates are going to be walking on. They'll kind of walk along the outer edges, and then they'll kind of slide along the middle edge. And that's also the surface that I guess this harness is going to have to interact with, and so perhaps it needs its own kind of this lower part must be kind of, it must have some other material stitched onto the bottom of it to or be treated in some way so that it slides as gracefully as the mole lizard slides. Because these mole lizards, like, they just kind of, I mean, they really act more like snakes than like other creatures, than like lizards. They're not afraid to. They have most of their body on their bellies. Mole lizards that have arms instead of legs, like we have, most of their bulk is resting on their belly all the time. They use their belly as locomotion. And I guess this creature could as well, right? I mean, this creature can also kind of move sinuously and also step sinuously. And in that way, accelerate at quite a speed, really kind of like keep going. So this is like the running part of the platform, and this is the sort of middle part of this is the gliding part of the platform, the cement platform. And then on either side there's tracks, and the carts run on the tracks. So yeah, wouldn't this be terrifying to have this kind of huge creature come at you down the tunnel. I'm just giving it some kind of extra sensors. Ooh, I like the idea of it having. There's some lizards that have, if you look at like a bearded dragon, for example, if you're looking at a bearded dragon from above, there's spikes everywhere, and I'm not going to draw all of the bearded dragon spikes because that would be, we'd be here all day drawing this example bearded dragon. Hence the term, hence the name. Right. So in the center of a bearded dragon's head, there's this slightly darker brown spot. What that actually is what's called a pineal eye. And I'm going to look up how that's spelled, just to make sure I spell it right. Yeah, P-I-N-E-A. So that's a pineal eye. So if you're looking at the brain in a reptile brain, you have like the brain, the inner brain, and the pons, the medulla oblongata, the spinal cord, the pituitary gland, and kind of at the back here, this is front and this is back. At the back here, you have the pineal gland, this guy. In a human, you have a cerebellum that goes all the way around this whole thing. And so our pineal glands are kind of deep within our brains. And so whenever you hear kind of pseudoscience about some astral planet expressing gravity in such a way that it affects your pineal gland and opens up your third eye and changes the whole way that you receive the universe, that's a little dubious. If there was something that was going to get gravity into the middle of your brain, it would probably get to the rest of your brain too. But in a lizard, that pineal gland is, right up at surface level or pretty close to it. And what it actually is in lizards is a photoreceptor. So this isn't technically an eye, right? It's not, it doesn't see, it doesn't have vision with depth perception and like a lot of interpolation in the brain. It doesn't have cones and rods, it's not separating by color, it's not absorbing light through a cornea. It's mostly just sensing kind of darkness percentage or lightness percentage that's occurring, which if you're worried about predators attacking from above, going from shade, going from sun to sudden shade, while that sudden shade was produced by something else's movement, right? Like it was not produced by accident. It was produced by something worth checking out. And so having a pineal gland on top of your head is smart. So our pineal glands are essentially atrophied versions of this. They don't really do this work anymore. They're also kind of buried in the middle of our brain. Anyway, the idea of this thing having a pineal gland is kind of interesting, or a pineal eye is kind of interesting. I want to go back to, I like this horse, right? I like the notion of something in a yoke arriving uh, and, well, it's a big creature, right? But the fact that it is harnessed and its labor is being used to move even more stuff, in some ways makes it more impressive as a giant creature. Um, so let's see what I can do to like mash up horse face and lizard face. Ah, and unlike our lizards, it will have this pretty elaborate kind of pineal eye. It actually maybe almost kind of goes back and down as decoration along the spine. And this is actually kind of overkill. This is just because there's a kind of morphology I love, which is the morphology of, well, I like animals where the body coloration, well, okay, actually, this kind of looks super phallic now. I don't really know how to correct that, except to maybe draw the rest of the lizard to make it perfectly clear that this is not sort of YouTube inappropriate, but is in fact quality D&D content. Cool. Alright, this guy is looking neat now. Oh, right, yeah, this thing has a giant bar coming out in order to accommodate the mine cars. And then there's a similar bar coming out on the other side of this harness. I'm going to jump back to the pit pony. And so what this is about, this hook, is that, well, at the end of each run, right, like these big squamate creatures, you know, they're not working all the time. They take breaks. The salamanders give them breaks. So when the harnesses come off, they must weigh like thousands of pounds. So it's useful. To be able to unhook them, to hook them from the top onto a rail or some other storage thing, so that storage mechanism, so that the weight of them is suspended, and all you have to do is move them around. So these mine cars that I'm drawing here, eventually steam power took over for mine ponies, and even mine ponies, which might not have been hauling cars, but were hauling the ore in even more laborious and direct methods, for before having cars on moving rail inside the mine. You just load a pony up and bring it back out. So to this day, these little mine cars, which are on rails, but they're narrow gauge rails, right? And they're small cars, and the trains that run them are they're full locomotives, but they're not necessarily as big as the ones that run on like a main line. Yeah. And then on the other side, there's another set of cars. Uh, so this thing could just keep going. As they train a car's 5 to 15 cars in length, and that roughly one car per would die for this squamate. Alright. So if the mine carts are this big and this squamate is this big, I'm going to say that probably the salamanders are then comparatively small. But they do have wonderful hats. I don't know if that makes up for their size, but perhaps it does. For those of you who are not kind of hooked into what's going on with these newts or salamanders, I kind of use the terms interchangeably because newts are a subset of salamanders, and a fair amount of these guys for more artistic reasons than necessarily biological ones. I give them newt-like kind of fins or appendages or other. Well, yeah, some of these creatures have the full range of neotenous traits that you find across all kinds of salamanders, newts, and lizards because they are essentially like a magical race that is somewhere between lizardmen and kobolds. So they're small, sometimes they're medium, sometimes I think a little bit like hobgoblins. They goblins, hobgoblins, and whatever's in the middle. They this is quite a beefy salamander, right? He's got you know, big strong arms because he's working in a mine, man. Not always are these salamander tails prehensile, but in this particular case, I think that it is very funny uh, for this particular miner to have just a little torch burning that his tail holds, and just an additional light source. It's always good, as I've been learning in these YouTube videos about exploring caves and mines. It's always good to have two light sources underground, because should one light source fail, if you only have one, you are in real deep trouble, real fast. Cool. I think I'll put another one of these kind of diamond shaped pineal patches at the back of the squamate here. The thinking here is that in such a long creature as this, like a brontosaurus, you'll have quite a lot of neurons at the head here, and then the brontosaurus has an extra kind of set of neurons, a hindbrain that does fast signal processing for the tail and for kind of the back area, and so having this deep coloration, deep diamond coloration, in multiple places makes sense, right? Because this is kind of where the brain mass would be, and so these pineal patches might link directly into them, and maybe let the tail dodge independent of the head. So I think that this creature needs to be able to move forward and backward basically the same, right? And so nothing about its legs should really mandate that it has to turn around in a tight space. It can definitely just back up in a tight space. I think for that reason, these cars need to be directly linked so that it can both push and pull. And it's important that this crossbar that it's pulling with its yoke is just, this thing is just incredibly strong, right? Because if it's not, then well, it's all downhill from there. All right, yes. Let's reunite some more things. So the real Bipes is the Bipes. Oh, what's it called? Bipes with an E. Bipes Bipedus. Cool. Yeah. Look at these little guys. I don't know if you can YouTube inside the YouTube. That would be very weird. And so you can see that this thing, it's got these little arms, but it navigates basically like a snake. And so I think that this, our guy here, act in kind of a similar manner. But yeah, as that walk there, you can kind of do that and push. But it means that it needs to have like a very strong, muscular. This is going to be a beefier critter for sure. So that's the Bipes porpoise. Bipes biporus. This guy. So what are we going to call ours, right? So Bipes biporus is the Mexican mole lizard. And this is more like a wyvern. I like calling them squamates, but yeah, maybe this is called And the other thing I'm thinking about is that, oh, that's an easy one. Rather than biporous, which I guess means, well, I don't know what biporous means in that context. Oh, it has multiple toes. Okay, well, that might be true. Well, but we can call it Bipes Bipedus, right? It's got 2 feet. So this will be Bipes Bipedus, also known as the Pit Squamate. Right? It is like a pit pony, but it's a squamate, and it is used to haul ore. So that's pretty awesome. This is a pretty complete idea, I think. What time is it? Oh, wow. I've been recording for a whole hour. I'm going to take a break. I'm actually going to end the stream. I'm going to take a good real break. I can feel that my back is kind of stretched. Not stretched. My back is seizing, and so I need to stretch my back. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to stream for probably another hour or so later in the afternoon. This again has been Connor with Pittsburgh Papercraft, and we've been drawing and exploring the idea of a bipedal predatory lizard, which we've converted into kind of beast of burden. But a beast of burden that has its own infrastructure. And we'll get into the infrastructure in this second half. Maybe we'll actually make some papercraft that could make this more real. So, yeah, let's do that. Uh, I will see you guys in a bit. Bye.